And the people of Israel, the Jews, the people in Palestine, knew what Son of God meant, which was simply a righteous, pious man.
So if you take that where he was only sent for the children of Israel, and now they can understand the language, Son of God, as you had given that evidence that meant a righteous person, and then you gave in part 1 all the evidence that the Bible literally has sons by the tons.
Yes.
And now you take this language and you take it outside of his immediate mission, and now we can give an example. For instance, if I take the slang, for instance, or the language of this time, and maybe I take it back or forward 100, 200 years, and for instance, you tell a person I need a lift, right? So that would translate as I need a ride. But somewhere else, they think of a lift,
yes,
elevator,
absolutely.
or, this guy's bad.
Yes.
Now, that can mean that someone say he's a bad person, but in another slang, he's bad. He's like,
awesome.
Awesome, yeah. Another one is Mary had a little lamb, If you take this literally, and this is just a story, but someone would think that she actually gave birth to a lamb. So is this kind of the same thing what we're saying, that you take a language that's suited for this time, understood by this people, and you bring it over here by people who are already worshiping sons, gods, Apollo, Jupiter, he had a son, Mithras, and now you can see how this gets all mixed up and confused?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is amazing. So tell us now, moving on, because we refuted some of the evidence that someone tries to use, saying that Jesus, no, he is divine. And okay, we're going to, just for the benefit of the doubt, someone's really sincere, we hope, and he has some other verses that are on the back of his mind. We want to clear these up. I and the Father are one. Tell us, someone might use this and saying, look, he said I and the Father are one. And they want to support him being divine. What do you got to say?
What does that mean? Aren't you and I one? My wife and I are one.
In a purpose, huh?
Yeah, sure. So, to say my Father and I are one, what does that mean? It's a very ambiguous statement.
Yeah.
Can be interpreted a number of different ways.
Yeah. So, no one comes to the Father except through me. What does that mean?
Through the message that Jesus taught. The same message that we as Muslims accept.
That makes sense. How about, he said, when they came to him, and he said before Abraham was, I hear this all the time, I am, the famous I am now. And they compare it to the Old Testament, where God, you know it better than me, with the Moses and tell him I am. Can you expound on this?
Well, they're doing a little pun on words there. But as far as the pre-existence of Jesus, that doesn't imply divinity by any stretch of the imagination. We as Muslims believe that all of Adam's seed, for of all time, had a spiritual pre-existence in which we testified to God about his oneness, etc. And so, in that sense, we're all pre-existent.
Yeah. So this is, again, one of those that if you went to an average layman and you took that verse and you showed it to him and you said, what do you get out of this? I don't think too many people are going to get that Jesus is divine or, one with God. Would you?
Well, again, we talked about it in an earlier show. There's this concept in psychology called the Rorschach test.
Rorschach test, yes.
Which is a series of ink blots on cards. You hand it to a person. You say, what do you see in this? Well, whatever the person sees, whether it's a cloud or an animal or a butterfly or what have you, is something that they themselves are projecting onto the ink blot. And so many of these verses, my Father and I are one, and no man cometh unto the Father but by me. I am the way, the truth, and the life. These are all Rorschach cards.
Yeah.
You're going to get out of them what you're projecting into them.
What you really wanted to say, you're seeing that. But if you're going to use that standardized across the board, it's not the same as some of the other verses that are actually unequivocal, where maybe you can help us out with that, where he's clearly making a distinction between him and God.
Oh, there are a number of such verses.
Can you give us some of those?
Well, sure. We can... in fact, why don't I enlist your aid here, brother? Because I wrote a few of them down. I thought this might come up.
Yes.
And let's see, beginning here where it says... biblical verses supporting subordinationism. If you want to just read off what it's asking for, I'll try and look it up real quickly.
Yeah, you got here in Mark 10:18.
Okay, let's see what Mark 10:18 says. And I'm reading from the New Revised Standard Version. Jesus said to him, "Why do you call me good? No one is good but God alone."
I mean, that's kind of, not leaving room for, too much interpretation. I mean, it's straight to the point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us John 5:19.
This is John 5:19. Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, the Son can do nothing on his own, but only what he sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, the Son does likewise." The Son can do nothing on his own.
So if he's God, he should be able to do everything.
Sure.
I mean, and he's saying that he can't do nothing.
Yeah, he's clearly saying he's subordinate to God.
Okay, we don't need actually even your master's degree to figure this one out.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah, okay, how about John 30? 5:30.
5:30. Okay. Again, words of Jesus, supposedly. "I can do nothing on my own. As I hear, I judge, and my judgment is just, because I seek to do not my own will, but the will of him who sent me."
So if he's God, who's he being sent by now?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And again, can do nothing on his own.
John 14:28.
He is the maintainer. He is the...
If you say that you do not believe in Jesus, you have stepped outside of Islam. You cannot be a Muslim. It is a tenet of our faith to believe in and love Jesus Christ.
one who protects us.
I would say this thing that you just told me, it's not in the scripture. And they would say, a marginal note added by a scribe, yeah, okay, we know that. And I would be thinking, if you know this is not the Bible, why are you preaching it as if it's gospel truth?
Us from hunger.
Okay. "You heard me say to you, I am going away and I am coming to you. If you loved me, you would rejoice that I am going to the Father, because the Father is greater than I." Very clear, very unambiguous.
Yeah. John 20:17. I like this one. This John 20:17.
Okay, Jesus said to her, "Do not hold on to me, because I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, and to my God and your God."
So
So if there's any equivalence here, it's between Jesus and other humans.
yeah. Clearly he's telling you that he's going to your God and my God.
Yeah.
And he's not God. So Jesus prays to God, it says in Matthew 14:23.
Oh, yeah, we have many examples of that. I don't know whether it's worth reading all of them,
Yeah.
but Matthew 14:23. "And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone," and so forth and so on. And the issue is, you pray to someone, obviously you are subordinate to them.
Yeah.
You are of a lesser status, certainly, a lesser rank.
How about if someone says, you know what, and I've heard this before, that he was teaching them how to pray to God, to himself?
Well, one could make the argument.
Yeah.
He certainly did a lot of repetitive teaching then.
Yeah. How would you explain, and I've heard this mentioned before also, that Thomas had came and worshipped him, said, "My Lord and my God."
Yeah. Very ambiguous. Mm-hmm. Oh. Surprise me with something. Anything.
You're pregnant.
My Lord and my God. Now, wait a minute. What does this mean? Am I simply doing an exclamation?
Uh-huh.
Thomas sees Jesus. He thinks Jesus is dead.
Yeah.
Jesus is right there.
Yeah.
He says, "My Lord, my God."
Uh-huh.
What do we interpret from this?
Yeah. Okay, so we have overwhelming amount of evidence that is clear, unambiguous, unequivocal, showing that you don't really even need a master's degree in theology to see that, hey, Jesus is making a distinction between him and God.
Oh, absolutely.
And then you have other verses that are, verses that are equivocal, that they're open to many interpretations.
Absolutely.
And why do you think people that they tend to want to take these to really try to justify this belief if you got all these other verses that are clear?
Well, again, I don't want to imply that people are deliberately, cherry picking biblical verses, etc.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, you have to appreciate people who are probably raised in Sunday school, etc.
Yeah.
They've been taught from the word go a certain view, etc. And when they read biblical verses that are ambiguous, they quite naturally and automatically project onto them the sort of story that they were taught back in Sunday school when they were children.
So it's kind of just wanting to stick to what maybe your grandparents, forefathers, you're defending something that, you just want to really fit, you want to make sense. And I mean, does a person just go to any bounds to do that, you think?
No, and again, I think you're implying more intentionality than there often is. I mean, people have been trained to understand things in a certain way.
Yeah.
By virtue of their, going to Sunday school every Sunday as a kid, etc.
Yeah.
And going to vacation Bible school, etc. And so when they read things, they just naturally read them with that interpretation in mind.
Uh-huh.
It's not that they're willfully distorting or willfully trying to prove a point.
Yeah.
I think as much as it is they've been trained to look at it this way. Mm-hmm. And they have never stopped and checked themselves and said, now, wait a minute. What are all the different possible ways that this verse can be understood?
Yeah.
They're sort of going on automatic pilot.
Yes.
Based upon how they were taught, how the story was presented to them when they were children.
Let's explain to the people now really who Jesus was and who God is. The true concept of God that I think if any rational person, sincere person, when he hears this, it's just going to fit with what God already embedded in all of us.
Well, we as Muslims believe that God is one. And that's a very emphatic one. That he is incomparable. Nothing can compare with him. Mm-hmm. That he is greater than anything you can name.
Yes.
Which is what is meant when a Muslim says Allahu Akbar.
Yeah.
God is greater. He's greater than this, he's greater than that. You can't compare God to anything. And as far as conceptualizing God, we humans, our minds are too minuscule, too finite. We can't ever get a totally comprehensive mental understanding of God. He's beyond our human intellect. That is the greatness and the majesty and the awesomeness of God. But there are some things we can say. God is unity. God is one. God is love. This is one of the names of God we find in the Quran. Al-Wadud, the loving. God is the loving. God is the compassionate. Ar-Rahman.
Yes.
Another one of the names for God mentioned in the Quran. God is the merciful. Ar-Rahim. Another one of the names of God mentioned in the Quran. So we as Muslims see God as one, as incomparable, as being a loving, compassionate, and merciful God. Also a just God.
Yes.
But a God that is loving, compassionate, and merciful.
And the true nature of Jesus, what does a Muslim believe about this messenger?
That Jesus was fully human, but that obviously as a prophet and messenger of God, he stood in a special relationship with God. One that those of us who are not prophets and messengers are not fortunate enough to have.
Yeah.
But someone who has been given a direct revelation from God certainly is standing in a closer proximity to God than the rest of us mere mortals are.
Now, you had talked about identity.